Larry Hoover, a name synonymous with Chicago's turbulent gang history, has spent over 5 decades behind bars. Sentenced to life imprisonment, his case continues to spark debate and controversy. Was he a ruthless gang leader who deserved his harsh sentence? Or was he, as some argue, a victim of a government program designed to dismantle black power structures? This is the story of Larry Hoover, a man navigating life within the unforgiving walls of prison, while a movement outside fights for his freedom. Looming large over Hoover's case is the Specter of COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program. This covert operation, active from the 1950s to the 1970s, employed illegal and unethical tactics to disrupt and discredit dissident groups, particularly those advocating for civil rights and black liberation. COINTELPRO's methods included surveillance, infiltration, psychological warfare, and even violence. The program's impact on the Black Power movement was particularly devastating, leading to the imprisonment, exile, and even assassination of key figures. The parallels between COINTELPRO's targets and Larry Hoover's trajectory are impossible to ignore. The demography of Chicago going back to Chief Black Hawk's wars against invaders. From Noble Drew Ali, the Nation of Islam, the 5%, Black Panthers, and Black Keystone movements in Chicago, which were all victims of COINTELPRO operation. The program's history of targeting black leaders who challenged the established order raises serious questions about the role of government overreach and racial bias in Hoover's case. Larry Hoover, another victim of COINTELPRO operation on the land. Listen at this, out of all 3 of my favorite guys, Larry Hoover got the most time. Jeff Angel Fort, born February 20th, 1947, also known as Chief Abdul Malik Kabah. The El Rukn got 168 years. The master teacher Dr. Maliki Z. Yorkel, born June 26, 1945, also known as Imam Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi, was given 135 years and Larry Hoover given life, plus 200 years, as if life wasn't good enough. They hated this man so much, they put another 200 years onto the life they had already given him in prison, as if he's going to live another 200 years after he dies. Unless they know something we don't know, like people come back after they die, or something. Keep in mind, all these brothers are victims of COINTELPRO operations at the North Gate, and were set up by the government. Keep in mind, all these brothers and many more are incarcerated in the ADX Florence, a supermax prison in Florence, Colorado, United States, as political prisoners. They've been criminalized by the government as bad guys because of their influence, which is why the prison they're in is called Florence, as in influence. What is influence? Influence is the power to have an important effect on someone or something. If someone influences someone else, they're changing a person or thing in an indirect but important way. Sometimes a person who influences another doesn't intend to have any effect, but sometimes they are using influence to benefit themselves. Influence is the ability to affect the behavior of others in a particular direction, leveraging key tactics that involve, connect, and inspire them. That's why we've identified influencing others as one of the 4 core leadership skills needed in every role. What is an influencer? An influencer is an individual, often with a large following, who can persuade their audience to take action, like buying a product or adopting a certain lifestyle based on their credibility and authority in a specific niche. Why are influencers not under government control? Dangerous and a threat to US national security. All influencers and influencer groups not under government control can be labeled as a terrorist organization. Adverse nations and other national security threat actors aim to disrupt the US corporation business structure. These types of influencers wake up the bots, especially if they are so-called black people. The US Corp national security rests solely on keeping so-called black people asleep. So-called black influencers who can lead their people out of the slumber are dangerous. So-called black people waking up disrupt US corporations' way of life and weaken their country lines, or should I say business. Keep in mind as we go over all this, don't take this personal, it's business. This isn't racism, this is about the stealing of your birthrights. People sent to ADX Florence, a supermax prison in Florence, Colorado, United States, have been blamed by the government of conducting and supporting terrorist acts, espionage, and other activities directed against US Corp and its private shareholders' interests at home and abroad. Other people like Joaquin El Chapo Guzman found guilty of crimes related to his leadership of the Sinaloa cartel, are in this same prison. El Chapo is also a political prisoner of US government. Like we said, you also got to understand the demographic of Chicago. The whole history of Black Power movement up in Chicago, you got to understand COINTELPRO operations. Before we get into Larry Hoover, Chicago has been a ground zero for a long time. In a military context, ground zero refers to the point on the Earth's surface directly below a major event, or more broadly, the point of most severe damage or destruction in any disaster. This starts in Chicago. A COINTELPRO, an acronym for Counterintelligence Program, was not born in a vacuum. Its roots snake back through the annals of American history, entwined with a deep-seated fear of social upheaval and a determination to maintain the existing power structure. The program, officially sanctioned by the FBI in 1956, emerged during a period of intense social change and burgeoning civil rights activism. America's Cold War anxieties fueled a paranoia that painted any form of dissent, particularly from marginalized communities, as a threat to national security. The FBI, under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, viewed the growing Black Power movement with particular alarm. The FBI's perception of black empowerment as a threat to national security laid the groundwork for COINTELPRO's most egregious abuses. COINTELPRO was not a monolith, but rather a hydra-headed beast, employing a wide range of tactics to disrupt and discredit its targets. The program's strength lay in its adaptability, its ability to morph and contort its methods to suit the specific vulnerabilities of its victims. One of COINTELPRO's most insidious tactics was infiltration. Undercover agents, often posing as sympathizers or fellow activists, would insinuate themselves into target organizations, gaining access to sensitive information and sowing seeds of distrust. Beyond infiltration, COINTELPRO relied heavily on psychological warfare, using misinformation, propaganda, and character assassination like weapons. The program's disregard for human life and civil liberties was chilling, operating with a level of impunity that spoke to its power within the corridors of government. COINTELPRO was not an equal opportunity offender. While the program targeted a range of groups deemed subversive, its most sustained and brutal campaign was waged against the Black Power movement. The FBI's campaign against Black Power organizations followed a familiar pattern. First, the agency would identify key leaders and organizations deemed particularly influential or threatening. These individuals and groups would then be subjected to a multi-pronged assault designed to discredit, disrupt, and ultimately destroy them. The FBI's campaign against Black Power organizations extended far beyond individual leaders, targeting groups like the Black Panther Party, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Black Panthers, the Black Peace Stones, Cribs, Bloods, Latino tribes, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Larry Hoover's story begins not amidst the concrete jungle of Chicago, but in the rural South, a region still grappling with the ghosts of slavery and the brutal realities of Jim Crow. Born in Jackson, Mississippi in 1950, Hoover's early childhood was marked by the pervasive poverty and racial segregation that defined life for Black Americans in the Deep South. Keep in mind, Jeff Fort and King David were all born in Mississippi. Amidst this backdrop of struggle and resilience, Hoover's family made the momentous decision to leave Mississippi, joining the millions of Black Americans who participated in the Great Migration. They sought a better life in the urban centers of the North, lured by the promise of greater economic opportunity and a reprieve from the constant threat of racial violence. In 1954, when Hoover was just 4 years old, the family packed their meager belongings and boarded a northbound train, leaving behind the familiar rhythms of the South for the unknown terrain of Chicago. Little did they know that the streets of Chicago, while paved with the hope of a better future, also held their own set of dangers and complexities. Chicago in the 1950s was a city of stark contrasts, a microcosm of America's post-war boom and its persistent social ills. For the Hoover family, arriving from the rural South, Chicago must have seemed both exhilarating and overwhelming. They settled on the city's south side, a vibrant yet underserved community that became a hub for black migrants escaping the Jim Crow South. For a young Larry Hoover, the streets of the South Side became his playground and his classroom. He witnessed firsthand the resilience and creativity of his community, but also the harsh realities of poverty, crime, and limited opportunities that plagued many black neighborhoods. Hoover's charisma, intelligence, and natural leadership qualities did not go unnoticed, and he quickly rose through the ranks of the supreme gangsters. From petty theft to power, the rise of a leader. The world of Chicago's street gangs in the 1960s was a far cry from the romanticized portrayals often depicted in popular culture. Hoover, still in his teens, found himself immersed in this dangerous environment, his intelligence and ambition propelling him up the ranks of the supreme gangsters. Under Hoover's leadership, the supreme gangsters expanded their territory and influence, engaging in turf wars with rival gangs like the Black Disciples. Hoover's ambitions extended beyond mere street brawls and turf wars. He possessed a vision of uniting the disparate black gangs under a single banner, creating a powerful force capable of challenging the status quo and advocating for the needs of their communities. We must tell you of David Barksdale, born Denise David Barksdale on May the 24th, 1947 in Salis, Mississippi, also known as King David. There goes Mississippi again. But nonetheless, man, I'm telling you, a lot of this stuff might go over your head. Who is King David? King David is one of the most significant figures in the Bible, revered as Israel's greatest king and a man after God's own heart. His life, recorded primarily in the books of 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, and 1 Chronicles, is a complex narrative of faith, triumph, failure, and redemption. His legacy extends beyond his earthly reign. He is a key figure in the lineage of Jesus Christ and is credited with composing many of the Psalms. Understanding the life of King David provides deeper insights into God's plans, the nature of human frailty, and divine mercy. Keep in mind, as we're telling you all this, Texas is Egypt and Israel is Chicago. Rewind that back. David Barksdale with his parents, Virginia and Charlie Barksdale, he was the 10th of 13 children. The Barksdale family moved to Chicago, Illinois in 1957. Within 3 years of arriving, David Barksdale had formed a small but well-organized tribe in his neighborhood. By 1966, his gang, having absorbed several weaker organizations into its ranks, was referred to as the Black Disciple Nation. Tensions grew between the Black Disciples and other gangs, such as the Black Stone Rangers and the Supreme Gangsters. Keep in mind, like we said, these were really outlaw tribes, turned into gangs by the government using a COINTELPRO tactic, bad jacketing. What is bad jacketing? Bad jacketing is a term for planting doubt on the authenticity of an individual's bona fides or identity. An example would be creating suspicion through spreading false rumors, manufacturing evidence, etc., that falsely portray someone in a community organization as an informant or member of law enforcement, or guilty of malfeasance such as skimming organization funds. You see, they're trying to dumb you down when they talk about gangs, drugs, and crime because of bad jacketing. Big Mama has a hand and a plan in all this. You see, Mississippi is Big Mama's kitchen. The Star of David, the God Body. The Star of David, also known as the Magen David, Shield of David, is a six-pointed star formed by two overlapping equilateral triangles and is a widely recognized symbol of Judaism and the State of Israel. The Star of David is a prominent symbol of Jewish identity, often displayed on synagogues, Jewish burial markers, and worn as jewelry. In Jewish tradition, the Star of David is seen as a symbol of divine protection, with the 6 points representing God's rule over the universe in all 6 directions. In Kabbalah, the Star of David can symbolize the connection between God, Israel, and the Torah, or the relationship between God and people. While commonly associated with Judaism, the 6-pointed star hexagram has a broader history, appearing in various cultures and contexts, including as a decorative motif and magical sign. The hexagram gained prominence as a symbol of Jewish identity during the 1600s, particularly within the Jewish community of Prague. In Islam, the hexagram is referred to as the Seal of Solomon and is found in some mosques and other Islamic contexts. The Messianic cross, a combination of the Christian cross and the Jewish Star of David, is a symbol of Messianic Judaism. The Merkaba body is often visualized as a three-dimensional representation of the Star of David, with the two interlocking tetrahedrons symbolizing the union of masculine and feminine energies, or the integration of earthly and cosmic realms. The Merkaba's geometric structure, with its interlocking tetrahedrons and intricate symmetry, has also captured the imagination of those interested in sacred geometry. The Merkaba is often described as a three-dimensional representation of the Star of David, with the two opposing tetrahedrons symbolizing the union of masculine and feminine energies, or the integration of the earthly and cosmic realms. The Merkaba's geometric properties, such as its ability to create a stable and balanced energy field, have led to its incorporation into various spiritual and healing practices. Merkaba meditation and visualization techniques have been developed to help individuals access higher states of consciousness, activate the pineal gland, and restore balance to the body's energy systems. Also, might I add, some older tribes refer to the Star of David as the Shield of Abraham. Keep in mind, Peter and some of the disciples carry swords. On my big mama, go read your Bible. The modern-day sword is the Glock. In Christianity, a disciple is a dedicated follower of Yeshua. This term is found in the New Testament only in the Gospels and Acts. Originating in the ancient Near East, the concept of a disciple is an adherent of a teacher. A disciple is someone who is following Yeshua, Jesus' teaching, being changed by him, and is committed to the mission of Yeshua. Matthew 4:19. In 1969, Hoover and David Barksdale called a truce and decided to combine both of their respective rival gangs, Supreme Gangsters and Black Disciples, together to become the Black Gangster Disciple Nation, BBC. This really put fear in the government. This created a much more larger black militant group in Chicago. One thing the government don't like is so-called black power movements. Black power, in its original political sense, expresses a range of political goals, from militant self-defense against racial oppression to the establishment of social institutions and a self-sufficient economy, including black-owned bookstores, cooperatives, farms, and media. COINTELPRO operation consider people like the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X's challenge to the multiracial, non-violent approach of Martin Luther King, Jr., helped set the tone for the ideological and tactical conflicts that took place within the black freedom struggle of the 1960s. This was all dangerous and a threat to national security. They were considered as black nationalism. Beginning in 1969, leaders of the Black Panther Party were targeted by the COINTELPRO and neutralized by being assassinated, imprisoned, publicly humiliated, or falsely charged with crimes. Some of the Black Panthers targeted include Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, Zaid Shakur, Geronimo Pratt, Mumia Abu-Jamal, and Marshall Conway. The new Black Gangster Disciple Nation, BBC, were not a gang, they are a tribe. Listen, to all my GDs, you're not gangster, you're just disciple family. I know you like the gangster term, it makes it sound more intimidating. Over the course of his life, Barksdale was arrested 25 times but only served short jail sentences and was never convicted of a serious crime. On several occasions when he was arrested, he used the alias David Jones, the Shinnecock tribal name. On September 2, 1974, Barksdale died from kidney failure related to bullet wounds he received in a June 1970 assassination attempt by members of the Black Peastone Rangers armed with M14 rifles outside of a bar Barksdale was frequenting with Larry Hoover on 848 West 69th Street. Barksdale died on September 2, 1974 due to kidney failure at the age of 27. The botched hit ended a truce that was in place at the time between the Rangers and the Disciples. Barksdale was buried at Restvale Cemetery in Alsip, Illinois. He was survived by his 3 children, David, Melinda, and Ronnie Barksdale, one of whom was murdered by a black disciple in 1996, and wife Yvonne Barksdale nee Yarber, until she was murdered 3 years later in June 1977. The killer clowns took out his whole family. Remember the bloody oath. Barksdale is still revered by the black disciples. Every year, a birthday celebration is held in his honor. In 2008, there was a parade that was sponsored and supported by the Black Disciples organization, and, in a controversial move, registered by the Chicago City Council for the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. The parade was criticized by the Fraternal Order of Police, and officers administering the event were forewarned about potential gang violence. By the late 1960s, Larry Hoover had emerged as a formidable figure in Chicago's underworld. He had risen from the ranks of the supreme gangsters, uniting them with the black disciples under the banner of the Black Gangster Disciple Nation. This consolidation of power, coupled with Hoover's growing influence within black communities, set off alarm bells within the FBI. To the FBI, steeped in the paranoia of the Cold War and deeply suspicious of any organized black resistance, Hoover represented a dangerous new breed of threat. They saw in him a charismatic leader with the potential to mobilize a disenfranchised population, a leader whose message of black empowerment and self-reliance challenged the very foundations of white supremacy. This perception, divorced from the realities of Hoover's actions and motivations, would shape the FBI's approach to dealing with him, transforming him from a street gang leader into a prime target of COINTELPRO's subversive tactics. Discredit and dismantle sowing seeds of distrust. Once COINTELPRO identified Larry Hoover as a threat, the gears of the FBI's clandestine machinery began to turn. Their strategy, as with many other targets of the program, focused on a two-pronged approach. Discredit Hoover within his community and dismantle the organization he had built. To achieve this, the FBI employed a range of tactics, some subtle, some overt, all designed to erode Hoover's power base and sow seeds of distrust among his followers. One of COINTELPRO's most effective tactics was the dissemination of disinformation. The FBI, using its vast resources and network of informants, would plant false rumors about Hoover within the black community. They spread whispers of his cooperation with law enforcement, painting him as an informant, betraying his own people for personal gain. They fabricated stories of his financial impropriety, accusing him of enriching himself while his followers languished in poverty. These rumors, often amplified through carefully cultivated media contacts, chipped away at Hoover's credibility, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and doubt. Beyond rumor-mongering, COINTELPRO also sought to exploit existing tensions within the Black Gangster Disciple Nation. The FBI understood that any large organization, particularly one born out of the volatile world of street gangs, was susceptible to internal divisions and power struggles. They would use this to their advantage, feeding information to rival factions within the gang, exaggerating disagreements, and even instigating violence between them. Their goal was to create a climate of paranoia and distrust within the organization, turning Hoover's own lieutenants against him. The William Young murder case. COINTELPRO worked to undermine Hoover's reputation and sow discord within his organization. The FBI sought concrete means to remove him from the streets. They needed a case to put him behind bars and tarnish his image. The murder of William Young in 1973 provided that opportunity. The details remain murky, but the FBI saw it as a chance to ensnare Hoover. The trial was a travesty of justice, manipulated by COINTELPRO. Hoover was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. The FBI claimed victory, but at a devastating cost to justice. Section 4. Isolation and control, exile within prison walls. Larry Hoover's imprisonment in 1973 marked a new phase of COINTELPRO's campaign. The FBI focused on isolating him, ensuring he could never again pose a threat. Despite confinement, Hoover remained a potent symbol of black resistance. The FBI maintained a tight grip, limiting his contact with the outside world. His communications were monitored, letters censored, and visits restricted. This isolation allowed the FBI to control the narrative, painting Hoover as a dangerous criminal. Section 1. Transformation behind bars, a change of heart. The clanging bars and cold concrete of prison became Larry Hoover's unwelcome companions, the price he paid for a life entangled in the violent tapestry of Chicago's streets. Yet, within the confines of his cell, a profound transformation began to take root. Isolated from gang warfare, Hoover confronted the consequences of his actions. He began to question the path he had chosen. The violence he had witnessed left an indelible mark on his psyche. The faces of those he had lost haunted his waking hours. Hoover began to experience the gnawing pangs of conscience. This period of introspection was fueled by literature, philosophy, and religion. He devoured books on Black history, sociology, and theology, seeking answers to the systemic inequalities that plagued his community. He delved into the teachings of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and other Black leaders, grappling with their philosophies of nonviolence, self-reliance, and social change. Hoover's transformation was a gradual awakening, a slow burn of conscience fueled by introspection. He began to recognize the futility of gang violence, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and shattered communities. He yearned for a different way, a path that would lead his people out of despair and into the light of opportunity. Section 2, Growth and Development, Redefining the Gangster Disciples. News of Larry Hoover's transformation spread through the ranks of the Gangster Disciples. Once a ruthless enforcer, Hoover now preached peace, unity, and self-reliance. This shift forced members to confront their beliefs and future. Despite confinement, Hoover remained a powerful influence. He understood true power lay in knowledge, unity, and economic empowerment. Hoover urged followers to embrace education, community development, and legitimate business ventures. Under Hoover's guidance, the Gangster Disciples promoted growth and development. They pursued education, job training, and entrepreneurship. Establishing community centers and offering scholarships, they sought economic opportunities. This shift, met with skepticism, represented a genuine effort to steer away from violence. Hoover recognized the need to break the cycle of poverty and despair. Section 3, The Price of Peace, a Legacy Marred by Violence. Larry Hoover's efforts to transform the Gangster Disciples were ambitious but fraught with contradictions. His message of peace resonated with some, but the organization's violent roots were hard to eradicate. The streets did not easily forgive, and the Gangster Disciples continued to be embroiled in conflict. Hoover's calls for unity were often met with resistance from within his own ranks. Some saw his transformation as a betrayal, while others used the organization for personal gain. This internal struggle played out on the streets of Chicago, casting a long shadow over Hoover's legacy. The Campaign for Clemency. In 1997, Larry Hoover was convicted on charges of conspiracy and extortion. This added 3 life sentences, seemingly extinguishing hope. Yet his supporters refused to abandon him. The Campaign for Clemency became a beacon of hope. Section 2. Voices from the Outside, Advocacy and Amplification. The battle for Larry Hoover's freedom extended far beyond the courtroom walls, finding a powerful platform in the realm of music and popular culture. Hip-hop artists, many of whom had grown up witnessing the devastating impact of gang violence in their own communities, recognized in Hoover's story a cautionary tale and a testament to the possibility of redemption. Kanye West, a Chicago native whose music often explored themes of faith, redemption, and social justice, became one of the most vocal advocates for Hoover's release. West saw in Hoover a reflection of the struggles faced by many black men in America, men caught in a cycle of poverty and violence, yearning for a way out. West used his platform to amplify Hoover's story, incorporating it into his music, speaking about it in interviews, and even meeting with then-President Donald Trump to plead for Hoover's clemency. He organized a benefit concert alongside Drake, another prominent voice in hip-hop, dedicated to raising awareness about Hoover's case and advocating for his release. The involvement of these high-profile artists brought unprecedented attention to Hoover's plight, reaching a global audience and sparking conversations about mass incarceration, criminal justice reform, and the enduring legacy of COINTELPRO. Their advocacy, while met with mixed reactions, highlighted the power of music as a tool for social change, amplifying the voices of those often marginalized and forgotten by society. Justice deferred or denied. Larry Hoover's case highlights the complexities of the American justice system and racial bias. Despite his efforts to promote peace, Hoover remains imprisoned. Supporters argue his incarceration serves no purpose. They question the tactics used to convict him. Critics argue his past actions warrant continued confinement. They see his transformation as a ploy for freedom. Hoover's influence remains a threat to society. Larry Hoover's story is far from over. COINTELPRO's enduring legacy. Larry Hoover's story is one thread in COINTELPRO's insidious operations. His case reflects a broader pattern of government overreach and suppression. The program's legacy continues to cast a long shadow over America. COINTELPRO's tactics resonate today, from the war on terror to Black Lives Matter. The program's success in dismantling black-led organizations created a void in leadership. The psychological toll on black communities cannot be overstated. The trauma of surveillance and harassment reverberates through generations. Seeking justice in the face of power. The fight for justice for Larry Hoover and others targeted by COINTELPRO continues. A new generation of activists, lawyers, and scholars are determined to expose the truth and demand accountability. They are filing lawsuits, challenging wrongful convictions, and demanding reparations, organizing educational campaigns and raising awareness about COINTELPRO's legacy, using their voices to demand a reckoning with America's history of racialized oppression. The fight for Larry Hoover's freedom is emblematic of this broader struggle. His supporters continue to advocate for his release, viewing it as a victory for all unjustly targeted. True justice requires a fundamental transformation of the systems that perpetuate inequality. The path forward will not be easy, but the struggle for a just society is a marathon, not a sprint.